So you want a 1,000 horsepower Cummins. But can it be reliable? They say you can't have your cake and eat it too, but with this build, you can. This is my personal truck, a 2007 1,000 horsepower 5.9 Cummins. In this video, we're gonna be going over how the build started, where it's currently at, and also what my plans are for the future. Welcome back to LMDiesel. All right, so how did the build start? It started in 2019 when I had been driving my current truck, which was a 1999 Suburban. I've been driving it for a while and I was really itching to get into a diesel truck. And I was scouring Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all of the sites, and this truck popped up. It caught my eye and I just had to go pick it up. This is what it was. So originally it was a 2007 5.9 Cummins SLT, quad cab, long bed, 4-wheel drive. It had dual ranch hands on it. It had a fast 165, which is still on it. It had airbags in the rear. It had a MAG high-tech rear diff cover, as well as a MAG high-tech transmission pan. The transmission had claimed to be built, but we'll dive into that later. And then it had compound turbos, and that was the big thing that drew me to it. But they were kind of weird, and I didn't have a lot of info on them. I believe it was like a 62 over like a 76. It was kind of an odd size. It was like a towing setup. It also had these ugly blacked out front headlights and then some decent 20x10 rims with some 35s. The truck had cloth interior, which was very clean, and it also had a 5-inch exhaust. Also, one of the great things that it came with was a bunch of auto meter gauges. When I picked up the truck, I was super excited, but unfortunately, as you will see with this video, it was definitely far from perfect. And as soon as I got it, the build basically started. So switching gears, let's go over my build and let me explain to you why this thing is crazy powerful, but also crazy reliable. The heart of every build is the engine, so let's dive in there first. So here's the basic engine build. It's got a set of Flux 103% over injectors, a set of Hamilton 103-pound valve springs. It's got Smeding diesel heavy-duty push rods, a Hamilton 188 220 cam, ARP 625 head studs, an ATS dual fueler CP3 kit, a fast 165 with a Beans diesel sump. It's got a great compound turbo kit from Unrivaled Diesel, an S364 over an S480 that is attached to the engine with an ATS second gen style exhaust manifold. I also have an aftermarket intercooler. I have no idea who made it, but it holds all the boost, no problem. We have a 5-inch Speed Lab exhaust. And then I also ended up adding a second battery to the bed. It did originally have 2 batteries, but I got rid of it. And then now that I live in Colorado, I needed to add one back again. And then the final thing for the engine build is recently Chris and I put in a stock reman O-ring head and a fresh head gasket. This is huge when you're running this much boost from the compound turbos. So all these upgrades to the engine are super important, and the most important of them is the compound turbos. Compounds, in my mind, are the biggest secret to having your cake and eating it too. When you have compound turbos, it allows your engine to get plenty of air on the low end and on the high end. The compound turbos do make 60 plus PSI boost. It might be even closer to 70 to 75. And what's great is that it allows you to still be able to tow, to have your setup not smoke too much, but then at the same time, you can switch it to Tune 5 and just go. Switching gears to cooling, it has a 180-degree thermostat, an aluminum radiator, heating machine, billet freeze plugs, and a coolant bypass. They all help a ton to help keep the truck cool. When you have bigger injectors and bigger turbos, you're obviously gonna create more heat. So all of these things have really done a good job of keeping the thermals in check. And honestly, this truck rarely sees over 200 degrees. Okay, so I mentioned that compound turbos might be the most important part of this build, but the second most important part of this build is the transmission. If you own a Dodge, I don't care what Dodge it is, where you got it, whatever, you need to build the transmission. There's just no way around it. You have to build the transmission. So I teamed up with Chris Patterson and we ended up putting a built 48 RE in this thing. It should be rated for about 1,000 horsepower, and this is the build list on it. It's got a billet input shaft, billet output shaft, billet flex plate, triple disc torque converter, HD forward spring, 3/8 billet lever kit, 4-seal servo kit with spring and cover, accumulator kit, master rebuild kit with GPZ clutches, overdrive piston support, coated thrust washers, Sunex direct piston, Maybe shows solid front man. And to top it all off, we were able to put my MAG high-tech deep transmission pan back in there so we can hold a little bit more fluid to help keep the trans cool. And then finally, we added a Mishimoto transmission cooler. That transmission cooler is insane. Like, no joke, I could be middle of Texas, 115 degrees, spooling up a big turbo, and that transmission would not get over like 150 degrees. It's crazy how cool that transmission cooler would keep that transmission. If you're gonna build a transmission, do not use the stock cooler. I would highly recommend getting a Mishimoto cooler for your truck. It's worth every penny. So when it comes to reliability, engine and transmission are so big and they're so huge, and I would very much recommend the build that I suggested. I think that if you do that, you will have so much fun with your truck. It'll be reliable and you can do rolling burnouts down the street, and it'll be great. But there's also a lot of other fun supporting things that I've done to my truck over the years, and I want this to not only be a good recipe for y'all, but also a nice overview of my truck as well. So as far as suspension, I have Bilstein 5160 dual reservoir shocks in the front, Skyjacker 2.5-inch leveling springs in the front. They're the soft ride leveling springs. Redhead steering box, that's big, that's important. Steering box brace, Rough Country dual steering stabilizers, airlift rear airbags, MAG high-tech rear diff cover, Moog track bar, Rough Country track bar relocation kit, and Striker fabricated control arms for a 2 to 3 inch lift. What I can say about the suspension on my truck is that it's decent. I would say it's better than stock, but it's not incredible. The Striker fabricated control arms are probably the best, as well as like the Bilstein shocks, but I still think that there's a lot of things that I could do to change my suspension in the front. All right, so on to the thing that I'm probably most excited about and that I love the most about my truck more recently, because this is one of the most recent big upgrades I've done, and that is the wheel and tire setup. I ended up teaming up with Axe Forge, and I picked up a set of their AF10 24x14s with a -76 offset, polished wheels, and then I combined those with the Giovanna 33x13.5 R24 tires. I also topped it off with some KSP spiked lug nuts. I love this rim and tire setup. I love the way it looks. I've always been a big fan of 24x14s. The great thing about this rim and tire setup, and you might say, Levi, I don't know how reliable that is, but honestly, it's been a great setup. The Axe Forge wheels have been super strong, no issues with those. The Giovanna tires are great. They're stretched a little bit, but not so much that you really need to worry. I've done plenty of burnouts on them, drifted the truck, stuff like that. They haven't like debeated or anything like that. Drove the truck from Texas to Colorado, loaded up with stuff when we moved here, no issue. We've driven to Keystone and Breck a couple times in the snow. As long as you put the truck in 4-wheel drive, the rims and tires are fine. Everyone told me, they're like, you need to get new tires moving to Colorado. You put the truck in 4-wheel drive, the Giovannas, like, they're technically an all-seasons tire. They look great, they perform great. I cannot be happier with that setup. All right, so as far as the exterior of the truck, it's got a set of Boost Auto 4th Gen style mirrors. Big thanks to Boost Auto for sending those out. It's got a roll pan, it's got a sport bumper, it's got the Ford Valence, 4th Gen rear fender liners, 50% tint on the windshield, as well as 20% tint on the rest of the truck. There's still a lot to be desired with the exterior of this truck. As of right now, I kind of have this red and black thing going, and it works decent, but there's definitely some plans I have in the future for it. Okay, so as far as lighting has been super fun for this truck because a lot of companies have reached out and helped me out with that. And this thing is a spaceship at night. So this is the lighting setup. It's got a set of Oxydo headlights, a set of Oxydo switchback blinkers, a set of Adrenaline Off-Road 12-row wheel lights. I get so many compliments on these, by the way. They're super bright, they're switchback, and they get a ton of attention. This is one of my favorite lighting mods I've done by far. So big thanks to Mitch for helping me out with those. We also have Adrenaline Off-Road grill lights, as well as underhood lights, and then 20 McTuning rock lights. And then to top it off, I got a set of Acon rear tail lights. All right, so moving on to the interior of the truck. So as you probably saw before, the truck started off with cloth seats. Very clean cloth seats, but still cloth seats. Once I got a hold of it, those had to go. So I was able to, thanks to Chris Patterson, install a set of Laramie leather seats into the truck. I love leather. It is great. It's awesome with having the dog in the truck and all this and that. Having leather in the truck has been awesome. I also installed a one-car audio head unit with Apple CarPlay. They sent that out. That was a great product. I've enjoyed it. It's been pretty reliable so far. It's got a set of kicker door speakers. I did sound deadening in the doors. It also has a set of autometer gauges, boost, EGT, and trans. It's got LED interior lights. I have a kicker 12-inch sub underneath the back seat, as well as a SoundStream Tarantula amplifier. It claims about 3,000 watts. You know, it's probably not, but that's what it claims. I also have EFI Live tuning with the 5-position switch. So that's kind of the basic build on the truck. I've done a lot to it, but nothing too crazy. So now let's change gears into plans for the future. And man, do I have a lot that I'd still love to do to this thing. The big thing I'd love to do is to repaint the whole truck. I would love to repaint the whole truck Monaco red. I don't know if that's in the future or not. It might just be a thing where I do my best to repair the paint now and then maybe repaint it in the future. So I really want to learn how to paint this year. So I think I'm just going to start doing my best to start color matching what I have, getting rid of all the black and trying to get the whole thing one shade of red. I think that would make the truck look so much better. The next thing I'd love to do is to install a cowl hood. I think that these Dodge trucks with a cowl hood look so good. I think it just makes the truck look so mean. It definitely makes the front end like a lot more aggressive. As far as suspension, my suspension's pretty good, but there's still a lot to be desired. And I have definitely been a big fan of all of the stuff that Carly makes. And so what I'd love to do is team up with them in the future and just do Carly everything on this truck. I still want it to only be like a 3-inch lift. I don't want to go for a 6. I love the 3, but I think just Carly coils, Carly track bar, rear leafs, I think all of it would really transform how the truck rides. So the next thing I want to do is traction bars. So here's what's interesting. For whatever reason, with all the power my truck makes and everything else, I don't get axle hop. I'm sure I'm getting some axle wrap that maybe I'm not fully noticing just because I've never had traction bars on it. But no joke, dude, like whether I'm doing burnouts, like brake boosting into a burnout, or if I'm just on the street and I just roll into it, it's always been so smooth in the back. But I still would love to do a set of traction bars. So I mentioned before that the truck has 20 McTuning rock lights. These lights have been pretty good. They're a solid RGB plus W rock light. And McTuning's done a great job of taking care of me and all that. So I do want to say that they're a good company, but I still also want to stress that they are a budget light. And even though the lights have been on the truck for only about a year, none of them have gone out, but some of the individual LEDs and some of them have started to. So because of this, I would love to just replace all of them at some point. And if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna go with my boy Mitch with Adrenaline Off-Road. He has these new rock lights that came out. I believe they're the Ultra Lux lights. They're crazy bright. They're not too big. So I'd love to get 20 of those on the truck at some point. They're super great, super durable, super bright, and just kind of a one and done thing. Continuing with lighting, what I'd really love to do with the truck is to do all Alpha Rex lights and then color match everything. I think that that would look so good on that truck. And then to complement the Alpha Rex lights, I think I'd go to my boys at Boost Auto and get a set of their cab lights. My truck didn't come with cab lights, but they actually have a guide on how to install cab lights onto my truck, even though it didn't come with some. So I think what I'd do is I would get a set of theirs and then I'd color match them and then I'd install them on my truck. Those are super sick because they have a super cool startup sequence and then they also are switchback as well. So they look really sick. I actually have a set of them on the black dually. Now these aren't super needed, but it would be pretty sick. And I've talked with Boost Auto a little bit about picking a set of these up, but their new Luma 2 power folding steps are sick. They have this massive LED strip on them. They switch back and then it would be great because it would help my wife get in the truck. because even though it's only a 2.5-inch lift, it's still kind of tall for her. I then would like to do frame paint, like repaint the whole frame of the truck. I think just black would be fine. I don't think I'd paint it red or anything, just black. And then I would love to top it off with like some TSO overlays. They came out with some overlays recently for my truck and I think they look so sick. And then finally, everything under the hood needs to be either powder coated or polished. Comment below what you think I should do. I'm thinking about learning to polish. I think that'd be pretty sick, but yeah, everything under the hood would have to be cleaned up for sure. I also wouldn't mind doing like a wire tuck as well. Those look really nice. All right, so that's basically the build, how it started, where it's at currently, and where I wanna go. I think this build is a great example of how you can have power and reliability. And when I mean power, like 1,000 horsepower, 1,300 foot-pounds of torque. While I personally haven't actually made that number with this truck, those turbos on Chris's truck, which had a very similar build, did almost 1,100 horsepower and 1,300 foot-pounds of torque. And then my good buddy, Justin Fio, had to wear his hat today. His truck is almost exactly like mine, like built 48, exact same turbo sizes, exact same injectors, like all of it. And his truck did same thing, almost 1,100 on Firepunk's dyno with around, I think, 12 to 1,300 foot-pounds of torque. So it is a powerful setup. It will blow the doors off of a Mustang, but I can also drive it to Breckenridge and take it skiing for a weekend. So I really love the truck. I really love how it turned out. I think there's a lot of guys that talk about power and reliability, and all of those trucks just kind of look like off-road rigs. Nothing against off-road rigs. I think those are sick, but I really love to see a street truck out there doing it too, and I feel like my truck does. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hey, we're doing kind of a different setup here in 2025. I'm gonna be trying to post more regularly, trying to answer you guys' questions. I saw a lot of people searching compound turbo Cummins build, 3rd gen build, all that stuff, and I figured it would be fun to make a video kind of covering my build. So if you have any other questions, feel free to drop those in the comments. If you've been watching to the end of the video, you're a day one. I appreciate y'all watching this far. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And boys, it's gonna be a good year. I'll catch you in the next one.